Hey, I'm golf broadcaster Matt Adams. The updated and expanded second edition of my book, The Golf Round I'll Never Forget, Golf's Biggest Stars Recall Their Finest Moments, is now available. Readers can expect to march with Arnie's Army at the 1960 U.S. Open, relive Jack Nicklaus's remarkable 1986 Masters win, and be amazed by the Tiger Slam. The Golf Round I'll Never Forget, Golf's Biggest Stars Recall Their Finest Moments. Pick it up where fine books are sold, including BarnesandNoble.com and Amazon.com.
This podcast is part of the Sports History Network, your headquarters for the yesteryear of your favorite sport. You can learn more at sportshistorynetwork.com.
Hello, sports fans, and welcome to another edition of Yesterday's Sports on the Sports History Network. Last week, we discussed the 1967 Oakland Raiders. Today, we will have part 2 of the 67 Raiders. We will go over the second half of their season. With a 24-17 lead in the fourth quarter, Daryle Lamonica connected with Billy Cannon for a 46-yard touchdown to give the Raiders a 31-17 victory over the Miami Dolphins in Week 9. Receiver Jim Clancy played a good game for the Dolphins, catching 8 passes for 114 yards. But the stingy Raiders defense held Miami to only 81 yards rushing. Despite getting sacked 5 times and throwing 2 interceptions, Daryle Lamonica completed 21 of 33 passes for 3 touchdowns and 292 yards. Billy Cannon had 6 receptions for 99 yards and scored 3 touchdowns. The Raiders kept rolling with a decisive 44-22 win and a Week 10 rematch with the Kansas City Chiefs. The Raiders' run defense had become so dominant that opposing teams didn't even try to establish a running game. The Chiefs ran the ball only 18 times for a meager 56 yards, and threw the ball 40 times for only 136 yards. The Oakland defense also forced 4 interceptions and sacked Glenn Dawson 6 times. Defensive backs Warren Powers and Willie Brown ran back interceptions for touchdowns. Fred Biletnikoff had another big day, catching 6 passes for 158 yards and 1 touchdown. Fullback Pete Banaszak, normally the Raiders' short yardage man, gained 81 yards on just 13 carries. He added another 27 yards receiving and scored a touchdown. The Raiders traveled to San Diego in Week 11 for a rematch with the Chargers. The Chargers' only season loss came in Week 7 against the Raiders. The Chargers' high-powered offense penetrated the seemingly invincible Raiders defense, gaining 115 yards on the ground and 315 yards through the air. But the Oakland defense forced 3 interceptions, and Daryle Lamonica had his best game of the season, completing 21 of 34 passes for 349 yards, 4 touchdowns, and 0 interceptions. The final score was Oakland 41, San Diego 21. In a Week 12 game against the Houston Oilers, the Raiders trailed 7-3 after 3 quarters, but scored 16 unanswered points in the fourth quarter to win the game 19-7. Oakland outgained Houston 431 yards to 238. Hewart Dixon had a good game, rushing for 96 yards on 21 carries with 1 touchdown. Week 13 was a shootout between Joe Namath and Daryle Lamonica. Lamonica passed for 336 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. Namath passed for 370 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. 3 receivers gained over 100 yards in this game. For the Jets, Don Maynard gained 159 yards and scored 2 touchdowns. George Sauer gained 146 yards and scored 1 touchdown. For the Raiders, Fred Biletnikoff gained 110 yards receiving. Billy Cannon gained 90 yards receiving and scored a 47-yard touchdown. Pete Banaszak gained 86 yards rushing and added another 73 yards receiving. Oakland avenged their Week 4 loss to the Jets, winning this game 38-29. In the final game of the regular season, the Raiders' defense had a tough time containing Bills receiver Paul Costa, who caught 6 passes for 163 yards and scored 1 touchdown. But that was about the extent of the Bills' offensive production. The Oakland defense sacked quarterback Jack Kemp 5 times, and Dan Connors returned a fumble 21 yards for a touchdown. Defensive tackle Carlton Oates also returned a fumble for a touchdown. Offensively, the Raiders ran for 173 yards, led by Pete Banaszak, who had a 47-yard run. The final score was Oakland 28, Buffalo 21. The number 1 ranked Oakland defense led the league in sacks with 67, a record that still stands. The following players made the Pro Bowl: fullback Hewitt Dixon, receiver Fred Biletnikoff, guard Wayne Hawkins, tackle Harry Shue, middle linebacker Dan Connors, and cornerback Willie Brown. The following players were named first-team All-Pro: defensive tackle Tom Keating, defensive end Ben Davidson, cornerback Kent McClellan, center Jim Otto, tight end Billy Cannon, and quarterback Daryle Lamonica. Lamonica was also voted league MVP. 13-1 Raiders would play the 9-4-1 Oilers in the 8th AFL Championship game at the Oakland Alameda County Coliseum on New Year's Eve. And it was no contest. In the second quarter, Hewitt Dixon ran 69 yards for a touchdown to give Oakland a 10-0 lead, and it only got worse for Houston as the Raiders went on to win 40-7. The Oakland defense dominated, allowing only 146 total yards and forced 3 turnovers. Offensively, the Raiders kept the ball on the ground and churned out 263 yards rushing. Hewitt Dixon gained 144 yards on 21 carries, and Pete Banaszak gained 116 yards on 15 carries. Now it was on to the Orange Bowl to face the defending Super Bowl champion Green Bay Packers. The aging Packers came into the game with an 11-4-1 record and were not the dominant team they had been in years past. They had come close to losing the NFL Championship game to the Dallas Cowboys in the coolest game ever. And some felt the 14-1 Raiders could beat them. Others believed that despite the difference in the team's records, the AFL was not quite ready to challenge the established NFL yet. The Raiders fell behind 13-0 before Lamonica connected with Bill Miller on a 23-yard touchdown pass to close the gap to 6 points. But from then on, it was all Green Bay, who went on to win 33-14. The Raiders were not dominated statistically. It was simply a matter of a more experienced, battle-tested team defeating a younger, less experienced team. From 1968 to 1975, the Raiders would reach the AFL or AFC Championship game 6 times and lose every time until they finally became world champions in 1976. But that's a story for another time. Okay, that will conclude our podcast for today. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you, and God bless.
This podcast is part of the Sports History Network, your headquarters for the yesteryear of your favorite sport. You can learn more at sportshistorynetwork.com. Hey there, sports history fan. This is Arnie Chapman, a.k.a. the Football History Dude, and I hope that you enjoyed this recent episode presented by the Sports History Network and were able to learn some good old-fashioned sports history knowledge nuggets. I started the Sports History Network back in 2020 with the mission to help podcasters find a community of like-minded sports history nerds, as well as helping aspiring podcasters to start their own shows. We have a little bit over 30 shows on the network right now covering all sorts of sports history, but as far as I'm concerned, we're just at the toothpick in the ocean moment, that can't even figure it out because there's so much more coming. We wanted to create the ultimate headquarters for sports yesteryear, starting with Podcast Network and our website, but we're going to continue to move into other mediums as well. And here's the cool part, because we want you to be part of our team. So if you're interested in starting your own podcast, or maybe being a guest on one of our shows, or who knows, maybe even writing an article for us over on the website. Seriously, all you gotta do is reach out to us on the contact page over at sportshistorynetwork.com. You can be as technologically savvy as a Neanderthal tapping on a stone trying to figure out this whole hieroglyphics thing back in the day. Again, it doesn't matter, because even if you don't understand the whole podcast space, we have a production team that can pretty much help you out with doing everything. All you gotta do, head over to sportshistorynetwork.com, head to the contact page, fill it out. That message goes right to me, and I'll reach out to you as soon as I can. But for now, dude, I'm through if you're through.